Welcome to Everything Casual, bringing you original football casual videos from the golden era of the 80s and 90s, right up to current day. Football away day stories and historic clashes between football firms. Subscribe so you don't miss out. We upload videos every week.
Good morning, good afternoon, welcome. We are at the Leeds fan zone.
Oi, lads.
Just to give you a word of warning, you will be searched within an inch of your life. They go through your wallet, they go through your pockets, they fucking fill your bollocks, they do everything. Madness, absolute madness. Plus, they do have dogs here as well. So just a word of warning for those of you who are making your way to Leeds. Not quite here yet, but making your way. Just thought we'd give you a bit of an update. But yeah, there is a heavy search, and Leeds also have dogs. So yeah, madness, mate. I've never been searched like this. I don't think you get searched like this going into a fucking prison. But coming to Leeds, mate, allegedly they do.
Their first competitive meeting came in the year 1931. For decades the fixture was rare, a curiosity on the fixture list. But in the 1970s and 80s, something else was being built, an underworld of organised travelling groups who called themselves firms. Leeds had the Service Crew, Millwall had the Bushwackers. These groups didn't answer to geography, they answered to a code. They travelled, they fought, they built names. By the late 1980s, both clubs and their associated firms carried a stigma. Newspapers called them trouble, police called them a problem, and managers tried not to talk about it. But reputations don't die when a season ends. They fester. Fast forward. League movement, relegation, promotions suddenly put Leeds and Millwall on collision course again. The rivalry that had simmered for decades boiled over in the 2007-08 League One season. On 27th October 2007, the match at Elland Road was marred by violent clashes before and after kick-off. The scene was chaotic, police lines, injured stewards, and footage that spread across TV channels. It was a shock to many, but not to those who'd followed the firm's history. On this channel, I like to get real accounts from real football lads, so we will hear from both Leeds Service Crew and Millwall Bushwackers. But let's start with Leeds Service Crew's take on Millwall. Here we go. Leeds Service Crew point of view. At Charlton in November, a game where nobody expected any grief, they were caught out by a memorable ambush by Millwall at New Cross. A coach was organised, with some top boys on, while others went on the train. Crombie Boy, who had been going since the 70s, was woken up when they arrived in North London. He had some of the more right-wing members on board, banging on the coach windows and making Nazi salutes to passing Jews as they made their way to Wapping. The coach dropped them off at King's Cross, and they were free to do their own thing. They'd heard that the police were at every station from Charing Cross to Charlton, so some hopped on a number 53 bus and eventually got off at Woolwich, where Chelsea were due to arrive later. However, they found no opposition there, so they hopped on the train and were soon at the ground. Leeds won 3-2, meaning everyone was pretty happy on their way back to Charing Cross. Chelsea were at home to Coventry, so they expected to bump into them at some stage, but what they didn't expect was a visit by Millwall, who were away to Bradford. However, some of the YTT suspected they might encounter the South London Terrors at some point, because Sully and Sticks, two lads they used to meet up with who were from the Millwall area, said they would be about. There were between 50 and 80 lads, most in different shades of Lyle and Scott, on the service train when it pulled into a quiet New Cross station. Moz got off briefly to stretch his legs, while others carried on playing cards and drinking beer. "Isn't this Millwall's area?" asked Leonard innocently. Almost as he spoke, the carriage windows went through, and Millwall appeared out of nowhere armed with makeshift weapons. Railway sleepers came through the glass, knocking out one lad, while Millwall grabbed tools from an open holdall on the platform: crowbars, hammers, spanners and axes. Dutton chinned one axe wielder, but most of the Leeds were taken aback. There must have been around 150 to 200 bushwhackers, and it was chaos, with women screaming and innocent passengers who had been leaving the train running back on again. Another window was put through as the train started to pull out. Moz had been chased down the platform by someone with a machete, and Skid said it reminded him of Frank Sinatra in the film Von Ryan's Express. Only Moz made it. It was a classic hit and run. At the next stop, some lads were seething and wanted to go back, but there was no point since Millwall would almost certainly have gone. Everyone was now psyched up and wanted to find Chelsea for some payback, and at Charing Cross, the headhunters were waiting for them. They piled out onto the station concourse, some of Leeds' finest, with the nutcases from Seacroft, Hare Hills, East End Park, Armley and Bramley, all on the warpath, and right in front of them was a similar number of Chelsea. As Crombie Boy points out, if Chelsea ever had a reason to hate Millwall, it was now, because they had fired Leeds up good and proper, and they went straight through on to the West Londoners. Leeds chased them all the way up to St Martin's Church and scattered the theatre goers, with the headhunters taking a pasting. The Leeds lot eventually went down into central London, got some coaches for a takeaway, and returned to King's Cross Station before people went off at their leisure. After chucking out time, those on coaches went for a takeaway and then returned to Leeds. A true cosmopolitan story. And this is another short story about Millwall from a Leeds point of view. All eyes were now on the club and its fans, especially when they faced Millwall in November, the first time for many years they had met the infamous South London Hardmen. It was a clash awaited by both hooligan gangs. When Leeds had played at Fulham on the opening day, Millwall were at Huddersfield, and about 40 lads went there instead. They saw some Millwall wearing t-shirts with Leeds United RIP 9/11/85 across their chests. Strict controls on ticket sales didn't stop several hundred off the main firm heading to the capital. The night before the game, some YTT lads were out on a bender around Chapeltown with Eddie C and went back to his house with a curry before getting a few hours kip and then setting off. Their coach contained an excellent mob, according to Tobin, who was probably the youngest on board. We parked up behind King's Cross, started walking, and saw about 300 lads at the top of a road, he said. We assumed they were Millwall or maybe Arsenal. There were only 50 of us, but we ran into them, and their mob moved back in shock. Seconds later, we realised they were Leeds. Eddie Kelly was with a few who ended up sleeping in Euston after going down on the Friday. The plan was to meet up later on the Old Kent Road, but people inevitably got split up. At New Cross Gate Station, the lads passed one pub that was already smashed up. The walk to the ground was volatile, with Millwall pouring out of the pubs and missiles being lobbed from both sides. Mounted police blocked pub doorways to keep the home fans inside. On the Old Kent Road, Eddie C made his legendary "This is the A-team" remark to a copper who asked who they were, after he had just taken another mob of Leeds to the ground. Millwall Bushwackers. Point of view. We heard the chant, "Leeds, Leeds, Leeds." Somebody opened the doors of the Duke of Albany, and 10 of the Leeds service crew were walking past the pub. We shot out the doors and attacked. 8 of us, steamed straight into them. My eyes locked on the one nearest to me. I ran at him and threw a right as hard as possible. It caught this geezer flush on the temple, and he stumbled into one of his boys. So much had gone into that right that I stumbled over too. I knew he'd been caught with a good un, and, as I looked up, another 5 Millwall boys were running across the road towards us. The fella who I hit was heavily dazed. 2 more of our firm came from behind me, and one of them punched him on the top of his head. The other kicked him in the leg, trying to take him down. The service crew were surrounded. Punches and kicks were raining in. The Leeds boys were covering up, with just the odd one trying to throw a punch back. They were all backed up to each other in a tight little ball. Still, no one was on the floor. 15 people throwing punches and kicking fuck out of them. It carried on for about 10 seconds. Then one Leeds fan spotted a gap, and they all made a dash for their lives, back towards the old Kent Road. They were running through the hordes and taking kicks and punches until the pack swallowed them up and they disappeared out of my sight. And now I am involved. I am pumped up, elated. The adrenaline is rushing through my body. My heart is pumping so fast it could keep 10 men going. I have just thrown my first punch at an opposing fan. I am buzzing. It had all happened so quickly. 20 seconds from hearing the chant to watching them sprint up the road. 20 seconds that guaranteed the path I was going to take for more than the next 20 years. Yet it had seemed like it had all happened in slow motion. Concentrate. Hit. Don't get hit. Hit. And don't get hit. We strolled back into the pub. And it is official. I am a hooligan. It was a day that would never be forgotten. By me, at any rate. It was Saturday, 8th November, 1986. Me, my 2 uncles and 5 of their firm were drinking in the Albany, a pub on the Monson Road, about 200 yards from the Den. This was my official introduction to fighting at football. From fighting in the playgrounds to fighting in the pubs, this was a natural progression. From that day, I was hooked. Being involved with the most feared, vicious, brutal and violent hooligan firm in the country is a buzz that cannot be given to you by any amount of drink or drugs. Any hooligan in the country deep down, wishes that he was born a Millwall fan. Anyone who denies it is a liar. I had been going with my dad all season. In fact, I had been going with my dad for years. Every home game we would meet all his and my uncle's friends in the pub. My father totally abhorred all the violence at football, yet the firm members were also members of his family and a lot of his friends. He was never involved in any of the fighting. For years, when the boys in the pub were leaving for some trouble, my dad would stay behind, making sure I stayed with him. No words were spoken, no lectures, no. Now listen, son. I don't want you to get involved with the firm, it's trouble. One day someone won't come back from one of these games. Nothing like that. Nothing. Just a look. Maybe he could see the growing sense of intrigue and fascination within me, how my ears pricked up and my eyes lit up when the chaps in the firm were talking about some recent fight or other. Without saying it, it was very clear to me that my dad did not want me to join the firm. He did not go that particular day. Me and my 2 uncles were there. My dad was working in a warehouse near the old Kent Road. He was a storeman for a big stationery company, and I knew he was going to start missing more and more games. Saturday was now overtime for him. Time and a half. Sunday was double time. Times were tough. We weren't rolling about in money. I had been building up to this day for a couple of years, on the fringe without being involved. On this day, my time had come. Simple as that. No one had put any pressure on me. No one told me to get involved. For years I had been in the firm's pub, drinking with them, hearing some stories. There was no recruitment process. It was now time to choose whether to just pile in with them, stay on the periphery, or back out totally. My time had come. Leeds were in town, and everyone knew what that meant. A big club with a big following meant a big chance of a big ruck. We were drinking in the pub and had had a couple of pints when we first heard the chant. Glasses hit the table and the race was on to get out. After the fight, everyone talked about it in the pub. We were laughing and joking, but only in our own little circles. No one was shouting at the top of their voices. That's the Millwall way. You never know who could be standing next to you. This was clear to me long before I threw that first right-hand punch. No one said anything to me about my involvement. Everyone just went back to their drinks. Within a few minutes, the conversation had moved on, and it was almost like it had never happened. A couple of people came in and told us that Leeds were everywhere. Straight away, the atmosphere changed. Everyone readied themselves for the next bit of action. We started making our way to the ground. I didn't see any trouble outside the ground, and I entered the stand, or the halfway line, as it was known. Not another thought about the fight entered my head. Now it was time to concentrate on the match, although it's a bit hard when you're that pissed. Fighting broke out across the pitch from me in the Cold Blow Lane end, but nothing major. After the match, we headed straight back to the Albany and back on the piss. I had a couple of pints there and walked on down the Old Kent Road to the Dun Cow. We stayed there drinking until my head was swimming so much I had to go home. I had just turned 13. The club nearly went bust following my first involvement. Millwall forced to make home games, all ticket, following fighting with Leeds. I didn't think too much about the press reports, nor about the repercussions. I was too busy buzzing off my first involvement as a hooligan. But we were forced by the Football League to make all home games all ticket. How was that going to deter hooligans? We had met a few of the service crew as they came past our pub shouting, "Leeds, Leeds, Leeds." What the fuck did it matter whether I had a ticket in my pocket or not? Millwall lost a lot of revenue. Picture the scene. It's 2:30 on a Saturday afternoon. Two geezers finish a job early. Fancy going football? Can't. The ticket office will be shut by the time we get there. Oh shite. Forgot about that. Let's go for a pint in a pub near the ground and see if we can kick the fuck out of some away fans instead then, eh? Yeah, why not? See what I mean? All ticket. The average attendance went from 6,000 down to 3,200 after this piece of legislation. The average number of hooligans? Well, that just stayed the same. Everyone was still drinking in the pubs and milling around the ground on match days, even if they didn't go in. It was no great problem. Our tickets were always organised. One of us would go to the ticket office on Cold Blow Lane. Having to sort out a ticket is no real deterrent, is it? If anything, it just shows how slow the authorities were in dealing with the problem. For me and the chaps in our firm, it meant nothing. Shortly after the legislation kicked in, we played Portsmouth at the Den. Pompey fans were everywhere. 5 of us had a right tear up with 5 of them. I had a one-on-one with this fella, tall, skinny geezer. I kicked him in the leg and he didn't really move. We are Millwall.
But Paul in the video van can't see what. The crowd is too dense for them to get near. The police are looking to the sky for help.
Yes, can we just have your...
A police helicopter fitted with a long-range CCTV camera.
X-ray 992, PMA 13.
Police in the chopper can see what's going on.
X-ray 99, you've got windows going out on the third bus now.
Thugs throwing missiles.
On the third bus right on the junction Wesley Street.
Wrecking the buses, and now the Millwall fans are joining in.
The Silver Leeds fans, the red mist descended, they started smashing their own buses up and kicking the windows out, and the Leeds fans reacted to that as well.
The buses have now arrived. You can see numerous windows smashed. Obviously they've been trying to storm off the bus, they've had to be pushed back onto it.
High above the chaos, the bird's eye view will be crucial.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you subscribe, you will be notified when we release a new video. It could be your firm we make a video about next, so don't miss out and hit the subscribe button. You can find me on Facebook or email me if you have a good story to tell. See you next time.